Hello. As you recall from recent classes, you have learned that the graph of a quadratic function is a parabola, and you've learned basic parts of a parabola. We're going to extend that learning now and take a look at what happens if we transform or change that function. What changes to the function have an effect on its graph. And we're going to use the Desmos graphing calculator with its function capability, its graphing capability, and its ability to create tables to allow you to develop conjectures and to determine what is going on. The first step in the process is to get our graph and our viewing area here to be set up for you to be able to develop conjectures as best you can. Our first step is to actually put in a function. So up in this plus sign, we're going to add expression. And in this box, we're going to type in the basic formula or the graphing form of a parabolic function. F of x is equal to a times parentheses x minus h and parentheses squared with a space bar and then plus k. If you recall, we've talked about how this is the graphing form of a quadratic function. You notice, now that we have that set up, we have the ability to add sliders for each of the variables a, h, and k. In this case, we're going to select all. We want to set up the sliders so that we can manipulate and change those. And as you can see now, we have a slider for each of the variables, and we also have a graph. And right now, this graph is set up symbolizing if a is equal to 1, h is equal to 1, and k is equal to 1 in this function. The second step is to set up our table. So I'm going to put the cursor inside the box here where our function is. Up in this edit list, you notice it gives us the ability to convert to a table. I'm going to select table, and inside this table here, I'm going to type in f of x. So now we have the table for values of x and the associated output when we substitute x in for the equation. So as you can see on this chart now, we have it set up so that we have our function, we have a table, and we have the variables a, h, and k with sliders. Let's complete setting up our template or our viewing area. Get rid of this keyboard. At this point we don't need it, so that we can see as much as possible. Now what I'd like you to encourage you to do is to manipulate the variables a, h, and k and see if you can come up with what is going on. What transformations are taking place in the graph as I change these values. And you can either use the sliders and take a look at the graph, or I encourage you to take a look at the functions and values on the table. So now before we get started, let's change the values for a is equal to 1, and h and k are both equal to 0. And take the next 2 minutes to manipulate these variables, take a look at the table, and analyze what happens to the graph. And at the end of 2 minutes, see if you can develop a full sentence conjecture for the impact that variables a, h, and k each separately have on this function. And at the end of 2 minutes, please share with your peer and edit each other. Thank you.